When was the last time you got frustrated filling out a form with bad user experience? Maybe it was on a government website, while booking a flight, or submitting a request to a bank. Welcome to the series of videos about user experience. Whether you're working in the line of business or consumer application, I want to help you create a streamlined UX your users will appreciate. There are 5 key principles for designing well-organized desktop edit forms, which are cohesion, simplicity, logic, focus, assistance. These concepts might seem abstract, but they make a real difference when put into practice. So let's build a simple form and apply these principles step by step. We'll transform user frustration into satisfaction. Plus, in the final part of the video, you'll learn the most common mistake developers make when implementing edit forms. And trust me, you'll want to avoid it in your apps. I'll be using a sample form implemented in a WPF project, but these same principles apply whether you're building a WinForms, Blazor, or .NET MAUI desktop application. Here is our edit form, a typical page for modifying employee details such as name, birth date, job title, and address. Even if you're not a perfectionist, you'll probably feel the chaos in this layout. For me, it's like listening to a band where every musician is playing a different song. That's what happens when there is no visual cohesion. As you can see, while the labels are aligned by columns, each input field is positioned based on its label width. Technically, this happens because the form uses a grid with 4 columns, and each column contains horizontal stack panels to arrange labels and fields. Let's bring some harmony to this layout. Now both labels and editors are properly lined up into columns. To create a clear connection between the labels and their fields, the labels are right aligned. This layout is built with a grid with 7 columns in the top section and a separate grid with 4 columns in the bottom section. The main issue with this version is that it feels overly complex, and that's because of the multi-column layout. Numerous UX studies show that a single-column design significantly reduces cognitive load, because users don't have to scan a form in a zigzag pattern. And with that, here is the next version of the edit form. Reducing the number of columns probably has the biggest impact with this particular layout. But since we're focusing on desktop UX, we don't always have to stick to a strict one-column layout. Sometimes grouping related fields like state and zip code make sense. We could also place first name and last name in the same row since they're part of a single unit, a name. However, in this case, this would take too much horizontal space. In line of business applications, you may need to display many fields, and it's not always practical to fit everything into a single column layout. A better approach in this case is to use multiple panels with a simple top-to-bottom layout. You might also notice that I reduced the width of the prefix field. While it no longer aligns with other labels, the smaller width gives users a clear hint on how much text is expected. The form already looks much better, but it still doesn't help users to visually group related information. It's like reading a block of text with no paragraphs. Without visual breaks, it's harder to process what's on the screen. Let's fix that by introducing groups. I've organized the form into visual groups using 2 techniques, empty space and a group header. As you can see, I've separated contact details such as address, email, and phone into separate sections. Let's improve the form by focusing the user on key elements. You may have noticed that we're using Fluent Design with semi-transparent window, which looks great, but can be distracting. It reduces contrast and makes certain elements such as label and group borders harder to see. Probably you didn't even notice that group border until I pointed it out. To fix this, let's place all the form content inside a panel-like border. I've added a border with rounded corners to match the Fluent Design system. To make it stand a bit more, I added a subtle shadow using the effect property. On top of that, I applied the accent color to the action button. If you have multiple buttons, make sure to reserve the accent color to the main action, so users can easily focus on the most important part of the UI. The form looks great, but users can still face potential issues when filling out certain fields. For example, they might enter a date or phone number in wrong format or use an invalid email address. Standard WPF controls don't offer built-in features to handle all the challenges, so I'll use DevExpress controls to assist with that. Here's what I did to make it easier for users to fill out the form the way a developer would expect. I added empty text placeholders to show users the correct format for the date of birth and phone fields. Next, I set a default value in the pop-up for the date of birth field. Since we're not using child labor, I've set it to 2007 so that the youngest employee would start with at least 18 years old. After that, I applied a mask to the email field to help users avoid mistakes when typing their email addresses. Then, I added incremental filtering to the country field, so users can select a country faster. The dropdown opens as soon as they start typing, which allows them to choose a country instead of typing all text. And here's the cool part. I've implemented an artificial intelligence-powered smart paste feature. Imagine you have all the required data in another app, and you want to quickly paste it in your form. So you can copy the data, and when pasting it, the AI model will automatically match data from the clipboard with input fields. To enable the feature, you need to assign the smart paste behavior and register the artificial intelligence client. Finally, I have one more design option for you. Some developers prefer placing labels above input fields to avoid the need for left-to-right scanning and create a more natural top-to-bottom flow. You can achieve this with separate labels above editors or embedded labels. Whether or not to use this approach really depends on your preferences and overall design of other controls on the page. Here, each editor has its label directly inside the edit box, and when you focus the editor, the label moves to the top. This technique is commonly used in material design systems. We've designed a solid edit form, and now, as I promised, I'll show you one of the most common mistakes developers make in edit forms. And here it is, using empty text placeholders instead of labels. Many people do this to save space, but it comes with a major drawback. Once it's filled in, it's hard to remember for the user what the label was. And it can really hurt your user experience, so it's best to avoid this technique. And that's it for today. If you learned something that will help improve your edit forms, please give this video a like. This button is blessed. I promise it will bring you luck. Thank you, and have a great day.